trapped inside our own barrier.
Hey there, Meergo here, and welcome to the Meergospective of what is one of the most immersive RPGs ever made, Gothic 1. When people think of Eurojank, the first company to pop in their minds is probably Piranha Bytes. If it's not, it should be. For the unfamiliar, the term Eurojank is not a pejorative, but rather a term of endearment for a game that was made in Europe, is ambitious beyond its means, unique in its own way, and probably ultra buggy. Come on, man, I believe in you. This perfectly describes pretty much everything released by German company Piranha Bytes, and Gothic fits the bill. Gothic is one of those one-of-a-kind, once-in-a-lifetime experiences. The formula was replicated by their developers in all subsequent titles, but Gothic is where it started and is the first of an amazing trilogy. Since it came out in 2001, I'll assume most people watching this have played it before. It may contain minor spoilers. Gothic takes place in the Kingdom of Murtana, where King Robar II has been fighting a war against orcs for many years. The king's only hope for winning is to forge weapons out of magical blue nuggets called ore. This ore is mostly found in a place called the Valley of the Mines on the island of Corinus. In order to acquire the massive amount of ore needed, the valley was turned into a penal colony where all those guilty of a crime are sent as slave laborers. To keep the prisoners contained, a magical barrier was created, which allows one-way passage, killing anyone trying to leave. While erecting the barrier, it grows to envelop the entire valley due to some unexpected wonkery and traps everyone inside with the prisoners. Eventually, the prisoners overthrow their guards and set up their own system of government. It's basically Australia.
That's not a knife. That's a knife.
Since the king needs the mine to win the war, negotiations commence. The king gets ore, and in return, the prisoners get whatever they want: supplies, women, etc. You are the latest prisoner to be sent to the colony, a nameless nobody convicted of an unspecified crime. When you arrive, you get punched in the face. Welcome to Gothic. Let's talk about graphics for a minute. For the time, the graphics were pretty decent. For today, yikers. Welcome to Polygon City with a draw distance of nope. The art direction is pretty amazing though. Forests look dark, dangerous, and uninviting. Dungeons are dark and creepy. The creatures and NPCs are well presented. And every time you come across a new creature, you fully expect to get disemboweled. Similarly, the audio is great. The music is iconic, at least for me. You know, I read once that music was one of the biggest triggers for nostalgia, and that makes sense because this game's music brings me back 20 years to when times were simpler and I had many fewer responsibilities. The time before Mrs. Meergo was pretty carefree living. Just kidding. In Gothic, every character is fully voiced. There is a lot of dialogue and idle chatter, and the voice acting can definitely be weird at times.
Only me alone! Die!
You are known as the Nameless Hero because nobody really wants to know your name.
My name is...
I don't wish to know your name. It's insignificant.
You are fully voiced, though, quite sarcastic, and sometimes capable of throwing a zinger.
It remains to be seen whose end it's going to be, you worm-bitten meatloaf.
When you start, you are met with the most ridiculous controls ever. Well, maybe not as bad as QWOP, but not much better. 2001 was a weird time when mouse look wasn't a strict necessity, so the controls feel like they were designed without the mouse in mind. Personally, I downloaded some quality of life mods to make it better. Here's a look at the inventory without mods. Yeah, I gave Fallout 1 a lot of crap due to the awful inventory interface, and Gothic is 4 years newer. Anyway, here it is again with the advanced inventory mod. So much better. I installed some other mods, notably one that turns right-click into a vacuum cleaner. This mod is called Auto Quick Loot, and it deserves to be in every game. I am all for immersion, but when a game forces you to play a crouching animation every time you pick up something, I lose my mind. Looking at you, Horizon Zero Dawn. I also installed Z Utilities, which allows, among other things, the ability to speed up time. You do a lot of running around in this game, and you don't really get to teleport until later, and I'm not really a fan of wasting time. So if I've run this path 10 times, I'd rather do it quickly. Even with mods, the controls take a lot of getting used to. The beginning is difficult mostly because you'll be struggling to figure out how to attack a mole rat, and every NPC you piss off will just mop the floor with you. Once you get used to it though, it is pretty awesome. There's ranged attacks too with bows and crossbows, and they work differently from each other. On top of all of this, there's magic, though I've never played that way.
Don't try that again.
After getting initiated into the colony, you meet the first of the 4 musketeers, Diego. He's one of the good ones in a pit of assholes.
If I were you, I'd shut up.
He also acts as a guide of sorts and takes you under his wing.
If you plan to stay alive for a while, you should talk to me.
This is actually how the tutorial works. You're not given any prompts or log entries. You don't even have a map when you start the game. Instead, you meet some NPCs who are willing to teach you how to survive, and you have to buy or steal a map. Often you need to give something to someone first before they'll help you, like a beer.
A good gulp of beer will do.
Hardly any of the game's mechanics are taught to you, and you'll have to learn through trial and error. And boy, is there a lot to learn. For instance, NPC interactions are so intricate that in my opinion, the system hasn't been topped in the 23 years since Gothic came out. NPCs will react to many things that you do. Drawing your weapon will be met with threats from nearby characters. However, drawing a weapon among equals or lessers is ignored. If you are grossly overpowered and you draw your weapon, some lesser NPCs will actually run away from you. If you're caught inside someone's house, they'll run over and warn you to leave. If you don't leave or you're caught stealing, you'll be attacked. For the most part, you can fight whoever you want, and usually other NPCs in the area will watch and even cheer you or the other guy on.
A fight!
This is a little nuanced though. Some people in the old camp pay protection money to the guards. If you pick a fight with one who does, the guards will intervene, and you will not be able to take on a guard for a while. You can prevent this by paying your own protection money.
That's why I'm asking you for some ore. Look on it as a kind of token of friendship.
But it all depends on who you paid the money to, if they're around when things get spicy, and who you're fighting. If you do manage to defeat someone, you'll merely knock them down. You are then free to steal all their belongings and weapon. If you knock down a traitor, their entire inventory is yours for the taking. The same goes for when you get knocked down though. Whoever took you out will help themselves to your ore and your weapon.
I suppose you don't have nothing against me keeping some more.
If you engage someone in a fight and run away, they'll even talk calling you a pussy before giving up the chase.
Come back, you pussy!
You can kill someone after knocking them down by holding attack and pressing W to perform a death blow. This will cause all of those who cheered your fight on to attack you though, since murder is generally frowned upon. Due to the game's legendary non-existent QA department, sometimes you'll get knocked down by those who definitely intended on killing you, but they forgot.
Don't ever try anything like that again.
Other times you get knocked down and then death blowed by a dozen overeager bald guys at the same time. After exploring for a bit, you will learn that there are 3 camps. To progress, you'll have to join one. The old camp is most likely where you'll go first, since it's
is the next reasonably safe-looking place you'll come across.
Thanks, Diego. This camp is run by the Ore Barons, notably Gomez and Raven, who are typical rich assholes and only care about staying in power.
I came to offer my services.
You just come marching in here and expect me to concern myself with you, you worm? Guards!
They have no exit strategy for the penal colony. Since they're living the high life, they don't really care. They're also the only ones that trade with the outside world. The new camp is full of rogues who steal from the old camp and mercenaries who protect the water mages. Their goal is to accumulate enough ore on their own so that they can blow it up and collapse the barrier.
will release the entire magic power in a great magic rite to blow up the barrier.
It seems like a far-fetched idea. The last is called the Sect Camp. These guys smoke swamp weed all day and have visions of the sleeper. Yeah, they're just as ridiculous as they sound, and characters in-game agree. They are often referred to as loonies, and it is said that their members only joined to get high.
The result is, of course, that some people only join us for the weed.
The sect leaders, the gurus, actually do communicate with a being called the Sleeper, though he may not be the savior they hoped for. You would think they're just a joke, but they're actually central to the story, as all the camps are.
Hey, the sleeper, awaken!
Whichever camp you join influences the quests you go on and gives you a different experience in the beginning, though the middle and end play out pretty much the same. For the most part, before you can join a camp, you'll have to get better. Your ability to defeat enemies is half your character's stats and half you bumble-f***ing your way through the controls. One of the coolest things about Gothic, for me, is how your character wields their weapons differently as they train. In the beginning, you are a buffoon, slowly swinging a longsword around with two hands. At one point, while training one-handed weapons, the trainer says something along the lines of,
"Beginners often tend to hold one-handed weapons with both hands. Now, don't even start getting into that habit. It'll do you no good."
After this, your character actually holds the sword with one hand and you attack much faster. How has this system not been replicated? It's similar in Gothic 2, but even Gothic 3 abandons it, among other lost qualities. Everything about this game oozes immersion. You can interact with many objects like campfires, forges, ore deposits, bookstands, hookahs. There's even climbable ladders. Interactions give no prompts whatsoever, and most interactable objects merely play an animation. Like you can chop away at an ore vein for hours and that doesn't actually do anything. You don't get any ore out of it. However, some things do stuff, like you can use a campfire and cook raw meat, though you'll only cook one at a time, and the game certainly doesn't even tell you that you've cooked anything. Creatures are statically placed and don't respawn. A small number of monsters will spawn at the start of each chapter, but that's it. Having hard-coded creature locations means that areas are gated by how good you are at juking the orcs, or just how powerful your character is.
Man, that's the way to the orc land. They'll make mincemeat out of you.
I miss this. All popular games nowadays have enemies that scale to your level. Yuck. Even the creature interactions are cool. At night, some of the creatures will sleep, allowing you to sneak up to them. Monsters will react differently to you depending on their temperament. More docile creatures like scavengers and mole rats will warn you to go away before charging, while aggressive monsters like snappers will attempt to sneak up before biting you. Orcs just run at you and start hacking away. Pack animals like wolves will gang up on you if you attack one of them, while most others will ignore their friend being murdered next door. Generally speaking, the quests are immersive too. The first time you go to the new camp, a rogue tells you that it is now your job to dole out water to the peasants every morning because he doesn't want to do it anymore.
Lefty sent me. I've brought you some water. Lefty sent me. 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 I brought you some water.
Man, f*** you, Lefty.
Thanks, man.
Come back the next day and he attacks you for shirking your duty.
I told you to take some water to the peasants.
You can always beat him up, which is nearly impossible at level 1, but if you do, he'll go back to distributing the water himself. The quest givers almost never give an exact location either, and there's certainly no quest markers, minimap, or compass. It's unfortunate that today's games discourage exploration by laying everything out for you. I often find myself merely heading towards the quest marker instead of taking in the surroundings. This does not happen in Gothic. After being inducted into a camp, you discover a threat to the colony and set out to stop it. Gothic boasts a grand cast of characters, each with their own personalities and some even with backstories, though usually they're all limited in their dialogue. Gothic's budget wasn't limitless. Okie dokie. On your quest, you'll meet the other 3 musketeers, Milton, Gorn, and Lester, who all greatly help you. You'll also meet the necromancer, Zardus, who definitely helps but also keeps demons around his companions. There are many other characters who all make appearances in the rest of the trilogy, and it's pretty awesome to experience it with many of the same characters. Anyway, eventually you rid the colony of the existential threat, probably murdered the Ore Barons, even Raven, though he comes back in Gothic 2 somehow, and bring down the barrier. With that said though, the overall difficulty is still pretty easy. You can get enough experience through fighting and quests to nearly max your character's strength by the time you join a camp. Yes, the beginning can be very hard, and your first playthrough will take you forever. However, subsequent playthroughs will probably be very easy, since you'll just avoid all the hard stuff until your character is good enough. This game is an easy 8 out of 10. From start to finish, it's charming, intriguing, funny, and extremely immersive. Have I mentioned immersion yet? Because this game, this is what it is. It does get a little monotonous towards the end, and it's rather easy. This game has a huge cult following, particularly in Germany, Poland, and Russia, and it spawned 2 direct sequels. One game we pretend never existed, 3 more games that were spiritual reboots of sorts, and 2 more games that are spiritual reboots of spiritual reboots. Out of all these titles, Gothic 2 is arguably the best and definitely my favorite, but Gothic 1 isn't far behind, and it started an entire subgenre. If you enjoy open-world immersive RPGs and don't mind dated graphics or controls with a learning curve, I would absolutely recommend picking this one up. If you like this video and you want to support the channel, please like and subscribe. Leave a comment below if you have any interesting Gothic stories or have any recommendations for games we should cover next. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.
In a land of knights and dragons where magic danced upon the breeze, there lived a man named Meergo, a hero known across the seas.